So June's over, and there's so much that just happened. We got some personal news that we're going to go talk about, and a bunch of stuff. But instead of me just saying, here's the little contents of this video, how about we give you some nice peaceful music and a nice little list of contents right here. Yeah, so I like that peaceful music too. So here's what we're going to do. So first things first, Jaws the Lion ended up being pretty huge. I know some people were initially turned off by it's supposed to introduce new people to the game, and that is true. And the first few scenarios are very easy, and they kind of strip away so many mechanics that it's barely recognizably Gloomhaven. But eventually, they go by so quickly to the point where even veterans can be like by scenario 4 and 5 go, this is so familiar. Everything about this feels right. And then after that, you have a whole little mini Gloomhaven campaign to set the events in. I'm not going to go into the details on the story, but it should feel familiar if you finish the campaign and go, so this is how we even got to that place. And Gloomhaven isn't really referred to as this big merchant city, but more so some ramshackle town on the edge of nowhere. And you can see that it's starting to really get built up. And anyone who's played Founders of Gloomhaven knows that there's really a lot that goes into the creation of how Gloomhaven came about, and there's a lot of things in like town records that give you some really cool insight into it. I'm not going to do it here, but you can look that up in your own campaign, and maybe we'll do some lore segments later. But for now, we're going to skip ahead to the next thing. I'm going to give a Patreon shout out to Mad Scotsman because he's amazing, and he has contributed the $6 tier, giving a little bit of idea of what we want to do on directing the channel. So if you actually want to see what the patron benefits are, check out the link. It's going to be in the description. And we're going to move on to the next topic, the AMA. Now there's a bunch of things that Isaac talked about in it, like for example, some decisions behind a few rules changes for Jaws, like the ability to trade things between players, since retirement wasn't really it isn't a thing in Jaws of the Lion. You just stick with one character, you go to the end. It kind of gets around some of these retirement exploits. So he says, you know what, you guys can freely trade items around, it's not a big deal. It does get a little bit of that competition between loot, but getting rid of that isn't a huge deal, especially when you're dealing with people who are trying to learn the game and you're not dealing with retirement. I don't think that's a big thing. And getting rid of the proximity rule on the tiebreaker for attacks. Now, of course, they're still saying lowest amount of movement, but getting rid of the proximity really changes how ranged attacks works. He did say in the AMA that he's not going to come find you and break your kneecaps if you just do the original rules. And in fact, that's what he does in his group. So, seems it's up to you, but they just made it nice and simplified for people who are new to the game, just want to get in there and don't get confused. Like, all right, this, then this, then this, and trying to remember all that order. So. And other important things that he talked about in the AMA, and I know you're thinking, he's talking about the big one, and that is burritos versus tacos. He's got a good point. Tacos are really messy, so I think I'm with him here. I'm with the burritos. But that's not actually what he talked about. I mean, he did talk about that. But more importantly, tiles and scenario book. Now, initially, anyone who's seen a scenario book and kind of come up with the idea of the all these tiles and all these other fun things knows that this is going to be it's quite the thing, because all those tiles in the Jaws of the Lion book tiles, they're very, very scenario specific. Like there's some that are clearly, there's like blood smears and it's only in this scenario, but a similar shape can be used in another scenario, and the art is just different every time, even though some shapes and other things will look very familiar. Well, if you have to customize it to that, you have to get the artist to say, all right, do this kind of hex, but then do this, and then do this, and then by the time you do that in Jaws of the Lion, which only has 25 scenarios, it doesn't add up to be that much. Frosthaven is aiming to be 4 times that, and not only that, but some of the scenarios definitely have an added level of complexity. So these aren't going to be those like tiny little scenario books. It's going to either need to be multiple books, or the thing is going to actually be thicker than any of the. It's going to be big. So I thought maybe there was going to be this, it would be prohibitive to do a scenario book. Now, the cost and everything about it just felt like something that wasn't a great plan as a designer. But from a player perspective, the option of having one or the other seems great. I would never say get rid of tiles, because a lot of the custom content, especially the people that were doing the community campaign, and we tested out several of those scenarios with Marcel Sertechka, great dude, and it's just harder to do those and custom content with the scenario booklet. So I'm like, you can't get rid of tiles. And Isaac listed a long thing about pros and cons, and he had way more cons on the scenario book. So naturally, just a few days later, he announces that they are going to be doing not only Frosthaven, a scenario book, but they're going to be actually doing a Gloomhaven one as well. Now, that's huge. Of course, it's not going to be in the game. You'll have to buy it extra. So this isn't just a, hey everyone, here's a freebie scenario book. But if you want to buy into it, they were going to give you that option. You don't need to do anything now. They're just saying, we've started work on it, we're just going to do it. You guys wanted it, it clearly got asked so much, and bam, it's going to happen. Now, I don't really care one way or the other. I think I like the tiles a lot, but my wife really loves the scenario book. So, maybe we'll ask Price from Cephalofair, shoot us that scenario book when it's out, and we'll test it out. Stephanie will love you if you can hook us up with that. So, you did a great job giving us Jaws of the Lion. We're loving it. There's a lot of cool stuff in it, especially those spoiler miniatures. I'm not going to spoil it here. Play your own campaign, but just let it be known. There's some really neat stuff in there. There's one in particular I'm super excited about. So I'm going to wait a few months before I do some really fun stuff on that. But get through the campaign. There's some really fun stuff in it, especially the story. And last but not least, some big news for us. Not necessarily, it's absolutely related to Cephalofair, but it's more specific to Rage Badger Gaming. We're going to be heading to Germany in 2021, provided that COVID hasn't destroyed the whole world by then. But we're going to be attending Essenspiel, meeting up with Price and Isaac from Cephalofair, and doing some fun promo stuff for Gloomhaven. Possibly some what's coming up, and we don't really know what the whole plan is, but we'll definitely be there. We're going to be hanging out with some of the people who work with Cephalofair, like playtesters or even designers. We're just going to be hanging out, so if you are really interested in Essenspiel, I see actually Germany is our third most visited country out of all the people who visit the channel, which it was just supposed to be some fun project, but we see the amount of countries end up hitting this, over 100 people from various countries, and I'm like, wow, I guess I'm kind of blown away. I mean, coming from the United States, I'm like, it's just us, but there's so many more people out there, and it's really, we decided, there's so many other conventions, but we really wanted to go see that core, one of the biggest board game convention in the world, Essenspiel. So we will be there. It's over a year away, so there's still plenty of time. But man, I'm so excited. I'm glad that I got to talk to Price from Cephalofair about it, and we've got some cool stuff planned. We don't really have the details, but as we draw closer, we'll give you an idea of what we'll be doing and what you can maybe look forward to. But there's going to be no spoilers until the week of, and I really think it's going to be absolutely amazing. Frosthaven will already be out by then, to give you an idea of how far away that is. So we're looking very much forward to stuff. We're going to be doing way more the Jaws of the Lion. We actually have a bunch of episodes recorded. We're just going to do a slow rollout to not just completely bombard the channel with a bunch of scenarios. And we have some painting videos recorded as well. So we did do a fun patron poll, and we have a couple more ideas rolling out. We'll be doing another of those, the humor video about the typical Gloomhaven players, and of course the patron poll on what was the next deep dive, and we'll spoil it here, it's the Inox Brute. So I'm going to do another poll to say what's going to be the deep dive in August, so that'll be only for patrons. So if you want to check out that Patreon page and vote on, hey, what class do you want to see us dive into, do it, please. It really does help us. And just thanks to everyone for just liking, viewing, and doing everything on our channel. It's been insane just from the end of February to now, and how much it's come along. So really appreciate all of you, and you're all amazing, and thanks for watching.